Okay. Second question from AI. It says, do you think we can see other major changes in the way that college sports athletes are compensated or treated by their schools and the NCAA? So other major changes in the NCAA.
I don't think there will be a dramatic shift here because so much went into that first year and a half, which we've now passed. Yeah, I think a lot of people learned. A lot of schools were asleep the first year. Alabama, for
Mhm.
instance, the biggest name in the sport, Nick Saban. I don't think he completely understood it because he didn't embrace it. That's why he got so upset a year ago when Jimbo Fisher had that class. That's really what it was about. It wasn't
Right.
about Jimbo Fisher buying players. It was about Nick Saban missing the moment. He didn't miss it last year, in the second go around, as you could tell. So the real issue I see in visiting all the different campuses, which we do, is there is a fatigue that's setting in. If you're a booster, how much can you give?
Welcome to my first NIL episode number 4. And today I'm talking to Mr. Paul
Oh, yeah.
Finebaum. Should I call you Mr. Paul Finebaum
I
or
wish you
Paul?
just
Which way
called me
you go?
Paul, but thank you.
No worries, Paul. Yeah, it's an honor to be honored to have you on and kind of interview you. I've watched you many times on the numerous ESPN shows. Love your takes, and
Thank you.
so welcome to the show.
It is my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to this.
So, Paul, as I mentioned to you in the pre-show, the whole theme of this show is about NIL. So, July 1st, 2021 is when the sports world was turned upside down in the sense of this NIL. So, current date, February 23rd, 2023. Is it better or is it worse? How with the NIL situation?
I think it's better for this reason. A lot of young people are finally profiting off of the same thing that the schools have been profiting off of for many, many years. And I think that's good. I mean, there are a lot of things bad about it, and a lot of old timers that I'm familiar with are up in arms. But listen, it's a new era, and I think it's about time college athletics recognize that the people that support it are entitled to something. Now, there are a lot of questions about what happens inside the transfer portals, where I think most of the criticism is.
Right.
But most players, if you go around the entire map of college sports, college basketball, baseball, it doesn't matter. Most people aren't making that much money. There are a few isolated incidences where you're seeing seven-figure deals, but the average player is making a reasonable amount that would be justified. It's poorly constructed, but that's the NCAA's fault. I don't like the fact that now the leaders of the NCAA are demanding that Congress fix it. It's their problem. Congress doesn't need to fix this.
Yeah, I've seen many takes of how you feel about the NC2A. So good there. So your position sounds like your position. So you're for
I'm
NIL, for
100%
players getting
for it, and
paid.
I mean it. Unlike some of the coaches who say things like, "Well, I'm for Nick Saban for one. I'm for name, image, and likeness." Anytime you spell it out, means you're not for it. You're just you're saying is it's distasteful to your mouth. But I am definitely for it because I think the system that is the current construct of this system has been broken for a long time, and players were getting things under the table. I'm not saying they still aren't. I'm not saying that everything in the NCAA in the portal or in the NIL world is above board. It's not, but that's the same thing with life in general. I just think the fact that that the leaders of college athletics have had to accept whether they like it or not, what the reality is, I think is a good thing. I'm very much in favor of young people being able to participate. And I hate to use this example because it's old fashioned, but if if you're at a certain school and have a job, you can make money, whether it's a lot of money or a little money. Why can't athletes get something for what they are doing?
Right. I heard you had a job. You making $42 a month. You mentioned before
Yeah,
as
my
a what,
first
as a
job
reporter, as a journalist.
as at the school newspaper at Tennessee was $42 a month. And by the way, I thought that was a lot of money at the time.
For sure. Yeah, making some at the university making a lot more than that now. The athletes. So speaking of athletes, and I think a lot of things when I'm looking at NIL stuff that's not getting mentioned or getting seen is, or at least what I'm hearing from it is from a parent perspective, right? So the parents, and now it's at the high school level on this NIL. I don't know. You have a show. What questions should parents be asking? They're taking their kid to potential school as a recruit. What questions should they be asking about this NIL deal?
Well, I think legitimate questions are, where is it coming from and how much, and how, and is there someone there to help? And there are, by the way, most major schools. There are programs set up. There's counsel. Now it's like everything else. How many times in middle school or high school did you go to an assembly where someone from law enforcement came and lectured about what to do?
Mhm.
And I never listened to one of them. I don't know about you. So I say the same thing here, is that I think all of these things are being offered to young people at the college level. It's just a matter of how much they pay attention, and I hope they do, because suddenly I didn't have money in my pocket when I was younger. I wouldn't, had I had it, I probably wouldn't have known what to do. The only supervision I had was my mother at the time, and I think sometimes it can be a lot to deal with if you're, if you're just a run of the mill high school student that goes to college, and the next thing you know, you've got a 7-figure deal. Suddenly, you have a lot more friends. So I think
Mhm.
ultimately there has to be some supervision, at least in council. But I think there is.
Right. So do you feel like it's going to get outside of you mentioned these, like, University of Alabama, these Power Five schools where you see a lot of these bigger deals. You had the king of NIL on your show, Raekwon, and talking about all the deals that he was getting, from smaller deals to bigger deals. Do you see it where NIL is year around? It's going to spread out more so to these D2, D3 athletes, or do we feel it's just going to stay around the Power Five conferences?
I think NIL will be everywhere. I think it will be different at smaller schools, but there are plenty of small universities, small colleges that have a great fan base, and I think in those small cities there'll be some support for what is going on. It won't be 7 figures, but I mean,
Right.
every community is proud of its sports teams, and it's just a matter of what they pay. I think the one misconception I think a lot of people had was that people would just be throwing money around. People don't. You
Hmm.
don't get you don't be successful in this world by just throwing money away. I mean, other than the
Right.
government, I might add, they just print money, so it really doesn't matter. Um, but if you're a small business owner, you want to get something in return, and if you don't, you probably won't continue doing it. Now, there's a difference. Now, all these collectives, that's a whole different story, as you well know. Most of that is, the same amount of money is being given, which
Hmm.
is fine. Listen, to me, and I know I'm on this. It's not like a broken record on the same theme, but there's nothing wrong with it. Whether you're making a lot of money like Bryce Young did, he was the first one to get a 7-figure deal, or if you're collecting a moderate amount of money, it's still helping people with whatever they need. I mean, I know when I was in college, I didn't have much money, so whatever I had from that $42 a month job, and that was, by the way, the sports editor of the school newspaper. I should have learned right then not to go into journalism, that it doesn't pay that well. But I didn't see the writing on the wall. But ultimately, I think we're talking about opportunity, and that's what
Right.
leaders have fought for from the beginning of time, is the ability to earn something for what you are bringing to the table, and athletes are bringing something to the table.
Yeah, they are for sure. And you mentioned, and this is one of the things that came up when I was researching you. And there was one question. I think Keyshawn Johnson actually mentioned this on the show when you're on, and talked about the ability of like losing focus because spending too much time figuring out how to monetize their brand and actually forgetting while they're at the university. Um, and you kind of agreed with him at that moment. Do you, now that we've been in this deal for a couple of years, do you see that? Because what I saw, like the University of Tennessee, for instance, I remember Jalen Hyatt, when he had that great game, then next days later, I see something on Google where he has a deal. I think they're realizing if I perform on the field, the better off the field these deals become. What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, my opinion has evolved. I thought it would be a major
Mhm.
distraction early on, and I wasn't against it. I was just concerned. I'm really not concerned anymore. I think it's a great exercise in life, and to me, college ought to be about many, many things. But mostly it ought to be about experiencing things for the first time on multiple levels. And what you learn in the Hyatt situation is if you do well, you're going to make more money. I mean, we don't live in a socialistic society. We live in a capitalistic society, like it or not. That's the way we do it in the business world. And I think it's good to know that. And I like the entrepreneurial part of it. I ran into it in
Mhm.
Knoxville this year. There's a young man up there who developed his own business. These are all positive things. I mean, what's wrong with it? And I mean, you learn to be successful, and most important, I think you learn to fail, which helps you prepare for life, which is a collection of many failures, by the way.
For
Not to
sure.
dissuade you
And I think
from
one
getting older.
I think one thing that's getting lost too, in the same way that I'm here interviewing you right now and creating a YouTube channel around this, is giving me the opportunity to create a revenue stream. So not just the folks that are involved, but people outside of the sport that's going to generate revenue because of it. It even helps that, like small businesses and stuff that can do other
Absolutely,
things now
I'm
because of
amazed.
NIL.
Every generation of young people thinks they're the smartest to ever come
Hmm.
along. But you know what? It's true, because every generation of young people have more tools at their disposal. We didn't when I was in school many years ago, and I when I talk to people like you, it inspires me because there are so many different ways and so many different tributaries. Now I realize I work on a large platform, of which I'm very
Hmm.
fortunate and blessed to. I haven't always done that though. When I see all these different vehicles, like what you're doing, I mean, it's inspirational because uh, there are many more ways out there to do what I love, and that's practicing journalism and broadcasting, and I think too many times people my age are dismissive, thinking there's only one way to do it. There's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and I noticed that too. Like even for myself, you mentioned like I've never went to journalism school at all. I've watched people like yourself how to ask questions, how to hold a show, and things like that, and just practice. We have this set up now, and I'm shooting this from a bedroom, right? But I can put this out in the world as content, and I'm learning from that aspect. So it's very beneficial. I want to get to back to the recruits because I heard this and I think NIL kind of where it's going, and the fact that you mentioned that you're in a studio now and you have a large platform. So do you feel eventually, because I know this was mentioned, I forget the name of the reporter, forgive me, that was on your show talking about LSU and how they're building out kind of like this like podcast studio in a sense to bring their athletes there to actually shoot content. Do you feel eventually, because I feel so, just like we have the athletic department, they have these nice facilities that eventually, at least the bigger Power Five schools will have these studios on site for the athletes to actually create content?
I do think that's an interesting idea, because the podcasting world, YouTube world, what is it really all about? It's about talking to other people about ideas. And
Mhm.
I mean, I have a lot of friends who have tried to tell me, I know I'm getting off the subject here, but uh, you need to get into the podcasting world. Well, we're in the podcasting world. What we do, it's just a different world. It's not the only thing we're doing. There was a lot of money to be made. I don't think there's as much anymore because it's so
Ahead.
flooded. But there are still unique ways to do it, and I think success or failure for athletes to experiment is very good. I think it's great when an athlete has to sit there and do what you're doing right now, because I think it makes it better for them the next time they're interviewed. And I think a lot of that is going on right now. Where's most of
Absolutely.
the basic money going in NIL? It's going to athletes to be available for specific sites to add content, added value. So if you're a Georgia Bulldog fan, you may pay the linebacker for the team whatever, so he appears on the gobulldogs.com site. That's a value to the collective that's funneling it. That's good. And now some in my business don't like that because what we call the mainstream media gets cut out a little bit. But hey, there are I've never there's no shortage of content out there. And I once an editor of mine asked me, he said, "What's going on?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "There's always something going on." He said, "Go out and find it." In other words, the excuse that there is no news today doesn't fly, because there's always a way. And what this does in the world that you're talking about, it pushes people to find different horizons. I'm trying not to sound like a template for mankind here, but I know I'm sounding like that. But it's also true.
Yeah, and I agree. Like you said, there's always something going on. Even me creating this channel, I tried to find a unique angle in which how I can share content. And that's why I asked you the question about parents, right? So I'm seeing a lot of stuff about what do coaches think, or how do university programs think about NIL, but nothing to say, okay, what about the parent? Well, how educated are they? Because a lot of them didn't even know about like just the basic recruiting process before this. But now you add on NIL, it's like, oh wow, it's even more complicated. So trying to create content for that specific
I think
audience
that's really
and say, hey,
important.
look,
I've experienced it. I don't do a lot of it anymore because I did the show. But when I was a young reporter, I would often interview or go to the home of the recruit, and I was always struck by how little the parents knew. Now I realize there are different backgrounds of athletes, but it was a little bit scary how vulnerable the parents would be, and that was also known by the coaches, and they were able to take advantage of that. That's more difficult to do today.
For sure, yeah, because there's so much information out there. You mentioned UGA. I know saying I'm in Atlanta. I'm not a UGA fan. I'm from Missouri, as you know, and I'm a Mizzou fan. What you got for me from our Tigers? We almost beat UGA this year. But what do you got?
I'll try
What do you
not to
think
be
they're
too
gonna do?
diplomatic. That's not how I made it. Doing what I'm doing right now, but ultimately, I think Missouri's at a crossroads. I think this is a critical year for Coach Drink. I'll spare you how much I like him. He's a fun guy to be around. He's a lot more fun when he's winning, which he hasn't really been doing. I feel like the program could possibly make a move up, though. But to get ahead, who do you move past? And with one more year of the SEC East, can you get ahead of Tennessee? No. Can you get ahead of Georgia? No. South Carolina? Maybe, maybe not. Florida? Maybe. Florida may be the opportunity. You're going to have to beat Vanderbilt. Kentucky is a challenge. So it's like I don't follow NASCAR, but I did early in my career. I covered it, and if you're on turn 4 of the Daytona 500, you've got to pass a few cars to get to the front.
Right.
And Missouri doesn't have to win the race; they just have to finish better than they're doing, and that's the challenge.
For
And
sure.
I that you can't drop non-conference games, which they have. They have a big game this year with Kansas State. They have to win that game. They can't waste an opportunity, and they've done that the last couple of years.
All my Missouri fans are going to see this and cringe. Hopefully hope is coming somewhere. Paul, have you heard of Chat GPT?
No.
The new AI stuff that's going on. So Chat GPT, reason I bring this up is you can type anything in there. Essentially, this is like a new thing that's going on in technology, and it'll spit back out an answer. It's really cool. So I was messing around with it yesterday, and I knew I was interviewing you. So I typed in there, what question should I ask Paul Finebaum? And it actually spit me out 6 questions. I'm not going to ask you all
Okay.
6 because
This is
some
fun.
of them were kind of isn't that good. But I want to bring you a couple questions that AI, not me, an AI, a machine, wanted to ask you, sir. So here's one. I'm going to read it verbatim. It says, how do you see the world of college sports evolving in the years to come as a result of the new NIL rules?
Well, I see it. I don't see it being the overriding factor, AI, but but I do think we are currently in a very critical evolution. The NCAA leadership is changing. The new president is coming in, the former governor of Massachusetts. Anything would be an improvement to what we've had. So what he's going to do, he's going to work on Congress to try to help with this bill that I was talking about earlier. I don't think it will be successful. So it's going to continue to be a struggle of sorts. However, I think we have seen most of the progress. I think it's just a matter of how you manipulate it from this point on.
Okay. Second question from AI. It says, do you think we can see other major changes in the way that college sports athletes are compensated or treated by their schools and the NCAA? So other major changes in the NCAA.
I don't think there will be a dramatic shift here because so much went into that first year and a half, which we've now passed. I think a lot of people learned. A lot of schools were asleep the first year. Alabama, for instance, the biggest name in the sport, Nick Saban, I don't think he completely understood it because he didn't embrace it. That's why he got so upset a year ago when Jimbo Fisher had that class. That's really what it was about. It wasn't about Jimbo Fisher buying players. It was about Nick Saban missing the moment. He didn't miss it last year, in the second go around, as you could tell. So the real issue I see in visiting all the different campuses, which we do, is there's a fatigue that's setting in. If you're a booster, how much can you give? And if you give money, you want to see a result. Rarely do you see, it's like politics. You see all these candidates announce they're running for president. We're Republican, primarily Republicans, because the Democrats at the moment have a candidate. And the first primary is not until next February. They'll start dropping out here in a couple of months. Why? Because they're not raising money. You can only fly to New Hampshire and Iowa so many times if you don't have any money. It costs real money to get around with a campaign staff, and if you're not showing momentum, you'll drop out. So translate that to NIL. If you as a booster of Missouri, let's say you've given $10,000 a year,
okay,
and the program still sucks, and they come around to you for year 3, and you go, I'm not giving any more money. That's a problem. So how you do often affects, because I mean, not only if you're an alum of a specific school, you're not only being hit up by the athletic department. Let's say you majored in engineering, that department's hitting you up. The university is maybe hitting you up for various things. So there's only so much. I know this is a cliche I heard when I was a kid, but there's only so much money to go around.
Yeah, and it is only so much money. And this was good. AI would be happy with your responses.
You know, I appreciate AI trying to hone in on my job, but I'm gonna continue to ask the questions myself.
Yeah, you're good. You're gonna be fine. You're gonna be fine. Well, Mr. Paul Finebaum, thank you for your time. Like you said, taking some time out. Stay on with me a little bit while we close out the show, but then ask you another question off air. But really appreciate your time and hopping on my first NIL to answer a few questions for you.
The pleasure was mine, Colby. And you be well. I'll be most eager to see how you do with your career, and you call me if I can ever help.
All right. Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.